the reigning, defending,
So it's been a week since Tim Tszuyu and Sebastian Fundora fought to a split decision, with Fundora coming out on top in an absolute bloodbath of a fight, and we still don't have any clear indication as to what's going to happen in regards to a rematch or somebody else stepping in to fight Fundora in the coming months. Welcome to the channel. This is a separate entity from the Unanimous Decision podcast, which you can find on Apple and Spotify and any other audio streaming platform. This is where I jump in between and do some boxing and UFC news and updates. So this is all the news that I've been able to gather during the week regarding this Tszuyu-Fundora potential rematch, if Fundora is going to be fighting Crawford. So I think this post crossed my Facebook feed on maybe about Monday or Tuesday, and comes with some quotes from Sebastian Fundora's promoter. I don't know how to pronounce his name, so I'm not even going to try. It says here, in quotation marks, "We were also eager to make this fight that many of our agreements were made verbally. There wasn't enough time," explained, insert pronunciation here. "But I wish to make it clear that Team Fundora will honour the agreement. My word is always equal to a signed contract. Tim Tszuyu, your rematch is ready when you are." He says the Fundora-Tszuyu rematch will happen, with the only deciding factor being if Tszuyu would like to do it immediately or if he prefers the fighters to take an interim fight each beforehand. It all depends on Tim Tszuyu. If he doesn't take the rematch, we will take the WBO mandatory or Spence, whatever the WBO says, but the first priority is the rematch with Tim Tszuyu. So credit to him for knowing that a lot of people would like to see a rematch, considering Tim Tszuyu was completely dominating in the first two rounds before that terrible cut happened to his head, which, once again, as I stated in the podcast and will state again, was a freak accident. Anybody who says otherwise is looking into it way too much and looking for an excuse, really. But he mentioned that if Tim Tszuyu doesn't want the rematch, which Tim has explicitly stated that he does. Also strange that if he has one, it hasn't been implemented yet. But I also know that I saw an article saying that they have both been suspended by the, boxing commissions for, I think Tim was until mid-May, and Sebastian Fundora, because he ended up with a broken nose after that fight, is some point in September. But he can fight and at the same point in May if he passes a physical from an ear, nose and throat specialist. Anyway, like I said, his promoter mentioned that they would look towards either Spence or the WBO mandatory. The WBO mandatory is Terence Crawford. Then a couple of hours later, I saw this, which is obviously an official email from the WBO. Please be advised that March 25th, 2024, this committee granted sanction approval of the Tszuyu-Fundora WBO Voluntary Championship contest held on March 30, 2024 at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. Sanction approval was granted subject to the winner facing next the mandatory challenger in the junior middleweight division, Terence Bud Crawford, within 180 days after the Tszuyu-Fundora bout. The foregoing condition was essential for purposes of sanction approval. So according to them, they weren't going to sanction the fight unless the winner ended up fighting Crawford. So it becomes a little squirrely because they've put this out, but it's also been stated in multiple places and by multiple people that apparently Tszuyu has some form of rematch clause in this. And as I stated up the top, Fundora's promoter has said that their priority is to give Tim Tszuyu a rematch. So remains to be seen how they can actually do that with the WBO pushing Crawford ahead so hard. And like I mentioned on the podcast as well, Crawford instated himself before the fight. It's not like he's tried to jump on this afterwards and, rush forward a mandatory status. He, as stated there, he was intending to fight the winner regardless of who it was, as he's making his move up to 154. But then also, as stated in that Facebook post earlier, there's rumours swirling that Sebastian Fundora could just drop the WBO title altogether and defend the WBC title against Errol Spence. But I don't know, that kind of makes no sense to me. Like I said in the podcast, if anybody's interested in listening to it, Unanimous Decision, Apple and Spotify. I believe that Crawford will fight Fundora and Tszuyu will fight Spence at some point later on in the year because, that's a decent fight at 154 and it answers a lot of questions. I'll be back in a couple of days with some other content. I'll be back with a podcast next Monday after UFC 300, reviewing that and previewing some events for the next couple of weeks. Like and subscribe for some boxing and UFC news and updates. Like and subscribe to the podcast if you guys want some longer form content. And I'll speak to you next time.